Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Friday, February 13th, 2026. Google just reminded everyone who invented the Transformer. The new Gemini 3 DeepThink update has crushed reasoning benchmarks, scoring 84% on RCAGI2 and leaving OpenAI and Anthropic in the dust. But OpenAI isn't slowing down. They just launched Spark, an ultra-fast coding model that runs on Cerebras chips, signaling a major shift away from NVIDIA. And in the boardroom, Anthropic has raised a historic $30 billion, doubling its valuation to $380 billion. Also today, Meta wants to put facial recognition in your smart glasses, and a new study confirms that AI is actually ruining your lunch break. This episode is made possible by AIRIA, the control plane for your enterprise AI stack. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
All right, check your calendars, check your pulse, and maybe check the settings on your smart glasses. It is Friday, February 13th, 2026. This is the deep dive.
Happy Friday the 13th. Seems appropriate somehow.
It really does, because honestly, today feels like one of those days we are going to look back on in, 5 years? And we're going to say, that was the split.
The split? What, like a timeline split?
Exactly. The moment where the entire industry stopped marching in one polite single-file line and just decided to tear itself in half.
I mean, that's not an exaggeration. If you look at the news that dropped just in the last 24 hours, it is, well, it's frantic. It's completely contradictory.
And the stakes are just incredibly high. It feels like everyone placed their bets on a different horse, and all the races started at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. Usually when we sit down for these deep dives, there's a coherent theme, right? You know, everyone is chasing smaller models, or the big thing this month is multimodal.
Right, there's a trend.
There's a trend today. I don't see a trend.
Yeah.
I see a civil war. We have Google going for what I can only describe as like God-level reasoning.
Right.
At the same time, we have OpenAI completely pivoting to ludicrous speed.
On hardware that isn't NVIDIA, which is a whole other story.
It's a huge story. Then you've got Anthropic in the background just raising enough money to buy a medium-sized country.
Medium-sized country. I checked the GDP numbers. We're going to get to that valuation. A staggering $380 billion because it is absolutely eye-watering.
But it's not just about the tech and the money today, is it? We also have to talk about the human side of this.
The human cost.
Yeah.
There's a new study out of UC Berkeley that suggests all this so-called labor-saving AI is actually just turning us all into burnt-out husks.
And just to add that little dystopian cherry on top,
The Black Mirror cherry.
Meta wants to bring facial recognition back to your face.
Yeah.
And your glasses.
The name tag feature.
Yeah.
That is a heavy one to unpack.
It really is.
So, okay. We've got the brains, the speed, the money, and the creepy surveillance state. Where do we even begin? I think we have to start with the brains. The reasoning war.
Agreed. Google's comeback.
For the last month, maybe 6 weeks, Google has been the quiet kid in the back of the class.
Dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you nervous.
Right. We had OpenAI with all their O-series updates. We had Anthropic dominating with Claude Code. And Google was just there. People were starting to whisper, is Gemini dead? Did they lose the plot after the 1.0 launch issues?
And that is the classic mistake people make with Google DeepMind. You assume silence is inactivity, but, usually silence from them means they are heads down trying to solve a physics problem that the rest of the industry hasn't even realized is a problem yet.
And this morning, they dropped the piano?
They dropped the whole orchestra. Gemini 3, the DeepThink update.
Okay, let's really unpack DeepThink. Because every time a new model comes out, the press release is full of fluff, right? Smarter, better, faster, more aligned. But the numbers coming out with this one, they look anomalous.
Anomalous is a very polite scientific way to put it. I'd call them statistically deviant. They break the curve. Let's just start with the big one, the benchmark everyone's talking about, ARCAGI2.
Okay, for the listener who isn't refreshing hugging face leaderboards every 10 minutes, give us the why I should care on ARCAGI2. Why is this specific test the one that matters so much?
So most of the benchmarks we talk about, like MMLU or human eval, they're really testing knowledge. Who was the 12th president? Write a Python script to sort a list. LLMs are great at that stuff because they've essentially memorized the entire internet. They've seen the answer before.
They're glorified search engines with a syntax wrapper.
In a way, yes. ARC is different. ARC, that's the abstraction and reasoning corpus, it was designed by Francois Chollet at Google specifically to break that memorization trick. It gives the AI a visual puzzle it has absolutely never seen before. No instructions, just here are 3 examples of a pattern. Now figure out the rule and apply it to this new grid.
So it's a pure IQ test. It's not about what do you know, it's can you learn on the fly?
Exactly. It's a test of fluid intelligence, of genuine problem-solving ability. And up until yesterday, the undisputed state-of-the-art was Anthropic's Opus 4.6. And it scored a 68.8%.
Which was considered a massive breakthrough at the time.
It was revolutionary. People thought we'd hit a plateau for a while. For comparison, GPT 5.2 was trailing behind at 52.9%. So, a solid 16-point lead for Anthropic.
Okay, and DeepThink's score?
DeepThink hit 84.6%.
Wait, say that again?
84.6%.
Stop! That's not an incremental improvement. That's not a generational leap. That's a species leap.
It's a blowout. It's a complete invalidation of the previous leaderboard. In this specific, very difficult domain of abstract reasoning, a 16-point gap is. It's like the difference between a bright high school student and a Fields Medal winner. It's a different category of intelligence.
Okay, but you know what the skeptics are going to say, and I'm one of them right now.
Let me guess. They trained on the test data.
Of course. Google is famous for, shall we say, optimizing their benchmarks. I mean, we all remember the Gemini 1.0 launch video where they faked the latency to make it look real time.
I do, and that skepticism is healthy. It's necessary. But here's the thing that makes this feel different. DeepThink isn't just winning on ARC, it's winning everywhere that reasoning is tested. It had a new high of 48.4% on a benchmark called Humanity's Last Exam.
And what's that one?
It's a test explicitly designed by independent researchers to be ungoogleable with novel problems that didn't exist before the model's knowledge cutoff. So you can't cheat.
Okay, that's compelling.
And it gets better. It scored gold medal marks on the 2025 International Physics and Chemistry Olympiads.
So we're talking about it solving graduate-level novel physics problems.
Better than the best human graduate students in the world. So for the developers listening to this, the number that probably made them spill their coffee this morning, its Codeforce's ELO rating is 3,455.
Wow. And Opus was what, in the 2,500s?
Opus was around 2,500, yeah. This is nearly as a 1,000-point cap.
1,000 points in ELO. I mean, in chess terms, that's not just a grandmaster playing an amateur. That's a grandmaster playing a toddler who barely knows how the pieces move.
It's a 99-point-something% win probability. It implies that for really complex software architecture, DeepThink isn't just coding in the way we think of it. It's understanding the abstract system at a level that the other models simply aren't capable of.
So how? How are they doing this? Is this just more compute? Did they just build a data center the size of Texas? Or is this a fundamental architectural shift?
It's the architecture. It's not just scale. It's about the way it thinks. This is where we get into the whole system 2 thinking concept.
System 1 versus System 2. Kahneman.
Exactly. Traditional LLMs are pure System 1. They're fast, they're intuitive, they're basically just guessing the next most probable word. It's a lightning-fast gut reaction.
Which is why they hallucinate. They're just riffing.
They're just riffing. DeepThink seems to be the first real scaled-up implementation of a System 2 process. It's implementing a search-based reasoning process. So before it gives you an answer, it internally explores multiple thought paths. It simulates potential solutions, it critiques its own ideas, it backtracks if it hits a logical dead end, and only then does it present the most coherent, verified path.
It's thinking before it speaks.
It's thinking hard before it speaks, which takes more time, more compute, but the result is 84.6% on ARC. And that brings us to the agent they built with this, Aletheia.
Aletheia, the name alone, that's Greek for truth, isn't it?
Truth, or more accurately, unconcealedness. The act of revealing what is true. And this is Google's new math research agent. And I really want to stress the word agent here because we use that word a lot and it's become diluted.
Yeah, agent usually just means a chatbot that has access to a calculator API or can book a calendar appointment.
Right. It's a tool user. But Aletheia is a prover. Here's the workflow, and it's mind-blowing. You give it an open mathematical problem, something that humanity has not yet solved.
Like a conjecture.
Exactly. It doesn't just guess or search for similar problems online. It navigates the vast search space of formal logic. It writes a proof from first principles in a formal language, like Lean or Isabel.
Okay, that's already impressive.
But this is the magic part. After it writes the proof, it runs that proof through a separate automated verifier.
So it checks its own homework.
It mathematically guarantees its own homework is correct. If the verifier says, error, logical leap on line 237, Alethea doesn't just give up. It learns from the mistake, backtracks, and tries a different logical route. It keeps iterating, proving, and verifying until the proof is completely sound.
That's the paradigm shift. That's moving from chatbot that sounds smart to scientist that produces verifiable truth.
This is the science victory. After a year of being seen as lagging behind, Google is planting a flag and saying, you all are building faster typists. We are building the superintelligence that will cure cancer.
Which is an incredible claim, but then you look across the highway over to OpenAI's campus, and they seem to be looking at all this deep reasoning stuff and just shrugging.
They're looking at it and saying, that's cute, but we have a need for speed.
It's the ultimate pivot. While Google goes deep, OpenAI goes fast. They just dropped GPT 5.3-Codex Spark.
The name says it all. Spark. It's about immediacy.
And the headline for me isn't just the model itself, it's the silicon it's running on.
This is the Cerebras story. This is the big one.
For the first time ever, a major flagship OpenAI product is running on Cerebras hardware, not the NVIDIA stack we've all come to take for granted, specifically the Wafer-Scale Engine 3.
I think this move is going to be studied in business schools for years. It's a massive gamble and a huge signal to the market.
Okay, we need to geek out for a second on the hardware here. Because Wafer-Scale Engine just sounds like a bunch of jargon salad. What does it actually mean physically?
Okay, let's break it down. Visualize a standard computer chip, like an NVIDIA H100. It's about the size of a postage stamp, maybe a bit bigger, right?
Right. A silicon wafer, which is a big disk, gets etched and then cut up into hundreds of these little square chips.
Exactly. And then to build a supercomputer, you have to take hundreds or thousands of those little squares, put them on motherboards, and wire them all together with incredibly fast networking. The problem is, moving data between those separate chips takes time. It's a law of physics, it creates latency, it consumes a ton of power. It's what we call the interconnect bottleneck.
It's like having a team of 1,000 brilliant mathematicians, but they all live in different houses. To solve a problem, they have to spend most of their time on the phone with each other, just sharing their intermediate results.
That is the perfect analogy. The communication is the bottleneck, not the thinking. Cerebras looked at that and said, this is fundamentally stupid. Let's make the whole wafer one giant chip.
So they just don't cut it up.
They don't cut the wafer. The Wafer-Scale Engine 3 is the size of a dinner plate. It is the largest single piece of silicon ever built. It has 4 trillion transistors. And because all the compute cores and all the memory are right next to each other on the same monolithic piece of silicon, the data barely has to travel.
So the 1,000 mathematicians are now all in the same room working on the same whiteboard.
They're telepathically linked. The communication is instantaneous. And that physical architecture allows for a kind of speed that is physically impossible to achieve on a standard GPU cluster, no matter how many GPUs you string together.
Okay, so the theory is sound. How fast are we actually talking with Spark?
The numbers are pretty wild. Spark is cranking out over 1,000 tokens per second.
1,000 tokens, let's translate that. A standard page of text, double-spaced, is what, maybe 500 words? 1,000 tokens is around 750 words.
So it's writing like a page and a half of dense code or text every single second.
You literally cannot read that fast. If
Yeah.
you're using it as a copilot, the code wouldn't be typed out. It would just appear.
It's instantaneous.
Yeah.
It cuts the time to first token, that initial delay before the model starts responding, by 50%. And they're claiming it codes 15 times faster than the previous Codex model.
15 times faster, but, and this is always the but with speed, usually when you type that fast, you make typos. Is Spark, is it stupid?
Stupid is a harsh word, but it is loose. OpenAI is actually being refreshingly transparent about this. Spark explicitly trades raw intelligence for velocity.
So there's a trade-off.
A major one.
Right.
It trails the full heavyweight GPT 5.3 codex on complex benchmarks like SWE Bench Pro. It explicitly falls short of the high capability threshold for critical applications like cybersecurity.
So you would not ask Spark to architect the security protocols for a nuclear power plant?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You get a very fast, very wrong answer. But that's not what it's for. It's designed for the interactive edit.
The flow state for developers.
Exactly. Think about a developer's actual workflow. You're deep in thought, you're writing a function, you forget the exact syntax for some obscure library call. Do you want to break your concentration, switch tabs, type a query, and wait 30 seconds for the genius model to pontificate and give you a 5-paragraph explanation?
No, you want the answer now. You want the autocomplete on steroids.
You want the fast typist who just fills it in. OpenAI is betting that 90% of the day-to-day work that developers do is routine. It's boilerplate, it's syntax lookup, it's simple refactoring. It doesn't require deep think. It requires fast spark.
It's a fascinating divergence in philosophy. It's like Google is building the world's best, most thoughtful professor, and OpenAI is building an army of interns on speed.
And if you're an IT department or a CTO listening to this right now, this is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, I can just imagine the collective hyperventilation. The budget meetings just got 10 times more complicated.
It's chaos. Because now you don't just have one LLM to manage and secure. You have the genius model for the R&D team. You have the speed model for the front-end developers. You have the open source models we'll talk about later for general tasks. And your developers, they're going to use all of them immediately.
They are not going to ask for permission. They're not filing a ticket. They're going to find an API key and start running with it.
Exactly. And when you have a model like Spark that's generating 1,000 tokens a second, can you even imagine the bill if someone accidentally leaves that running in an infinite loop overnight?
Or the data leakage. What if someone pastes a sensitive algorithm into the Spark API to get it to refactor it quickly? Where does that data go? How do you track it?
You can't. Not without the right tools. This speed is amazing, but it creates a massive, massive headache for IT. How do you possibly manage that kind of chaotic innovation?
It seems impossible.
Well, that is exactly why we use ARA.
ARA.
ARIA is essentially the control plane for your entire AI stack. Think of it as this intelligent, unified gateway that sits between all your users and all these different crazy new models.
So it's like the air traffic controller for your company's AI usage?
It's more than a controller. It's a full-on management system. It's what allows an enterprise to say yes to new models, to give their developers access to Spark, or their researchers access to deep think without compromising on security or blowing up the budget. It unifies all the analytics in one place.
And the cost control part seems critical here.
It's absolutely essential. AIR offers real-time cost control. So if that developer accidentally sets Spark to an infinite loop, AIR's policies see the anomalous usage and cut it off automatically before you bankrupt the entire department.
And what about the security aspect, the data leakage?
That's the other pillar, threat detection. It scans the prompts and the outputs in real time. So you don't accidentally have an employee pasting your entire customer database or proprietary source code into a public model. It blocks it before it leaves your network.
So managing these new fast APIs is tough. And it seems like this is the kind of solution that becomes a must-have, not a nice-to-have, in this new two-speed world.
It's exactly why we use it. If you're a business leader and you're feeling the chaos of this two-speed AI world, you need to secure your stack.
You can learn more about AIRIA by checking out the link in our show notes.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered the tech, the brains versus the speed. Now we have to talk about the fuel that makes all of this run.
The money. And the numbers coming out of Anthropic this week are, I have to ask the question,
Right.
Are we in a bubble? Or is this just the new reality for building foundation models?
I think it's the new reality of what's called capital-intensive compute. Anthropic just closed another round of funding, $30 billion.
$30 billion, just casually announced on a Friday.
And that new funding pushes their valuation to $380 billion.
Let's just sit with that number for a second. $380 billion. That is roughly the GDP of Hong Kong. It's more than the market cap of companies like Netflix or Bank of America. And it's double what they were supposedly worth just back in September.
It is a massive, massive jump. But here's the difference between now and the dot-com boom of the 90s. Unlike Pets.com, there is actual significant revenue here. Anthropic's annualized revenue just hit $14 billion. That's up from $10 billion just last year.
So the growth is real, and I saw a specific breakdown of that revenue that I found really fascinating. They said $2.5 billion of that $14 million is coming purely from their Claude Code model.
Which completely validates the thesis we were just talking about. Coding is the killer app. It's the first and most obvious place to get massive ROI. Companies will pay an enormous premium for an AI that can reliably write and debug high-quality software, because it's still cheaper than hiring an army of senior human engineers, even at these prices.
It's a productivity multiplier that you can actually measure on a balance sheet.
Exactly. But the investor list on this round is maybe the most interesting part of the story. The round was led by Coatue and GIC, which is Singapore's sovereign wealth fund. But the two big participants were Microsoft, which put in another $5 billion, and NVIDIA, which committed $10 billion.
The Microsoft investment is the real headline for me. Microsoft is supposed to be OpenAI's exclusive partner.
They're supposed to be married. They have a multi-billion-dollar deal. Microsoft Azure is meant to be the home of OpenAI.
And yet here they are, putting $5 billion into their biggest rival.
It's a very, very open marriage. Microsoft is hedging its bets, plain and simple. They see the chaos at OpenAI, the leadership drama, the sudden pivot to Cerebras, which cuts them out of the hardware loop. And they're saying, we absolutely need a backup plan. If OpenAI trips and falls, Microsoft now owns a massive chunk of the number 2 player in the market. It's brilliant, ruthless corporate strategy.
And NVIDIA putting in $10 billion, that feels less like an investment and more like buying loyalty.
Yeah. It feels like protection money. It's NVIDIA saying, here is $10 billion. Please, please don't switch to Cerebras like OpenAI just did. Please keep buying our chips.
It's vendor lock-in via equity investment. Incredible.
It really is. But while all the American giants are throwing billions of dollars at each other, we have to look east, because the fundamental economics of AI are being completely rewritten in China.
And this is the MiniMax story, right?
This is a MiniMax M2.5 story. This is a model from a Chinese AI lab that, on most major benchmarks, is now rivaling Anthropic's Opus 4.6 and GPT-5.
Okay, so we're talking about Tier 1, state-of-the-art intelligence.
Tier 1 capability, but the price, this is what's breaking everyone's brains. Opus from Anthropic costs roughly $25,000 per $1 million tokens of output. MiniMax M2.5 cost $1.20.
I'm sorry, did you say $1.20?
$1.20. And their super fast Lightning version is $2.40.
That's more than a 95% discount. How is that even possible? Are they just losing a catastrophic amount of money on every single token?
They almost certainly are. For now. It's a loss leader strategy to capture the market. But they're also benefiting from cheaper domestic compute, government subsidies, and just incredibly aggressive architectural optimization. But in the short term, the why doesn't matter as much as the result.
Which is?
We are rapidly entering the era of intelligence too cheap to meter.
What happens when intelligence becomes effectively free? When it's like water from a tap?
Your entire relationship with it changes. If an API call costs you $25, you're careful.
Yeah.
You craft your prompts. You use it sparingly for high-value tasks. If it costs $1, you treat it like water. You leave the tap running. And MiniMax's internal stats prove this. They revealed they are now using their own model to handle 30% of all their daily internal company tasks.
And the coding stat was even crazier.
This is the one. They said 80% of their new code commits are now written by the AI.
80%. So the human engineers, they aren't coding anymore. They're just reviewing the code.
They're barely even reviewing it in the traditional sense. They're becoming directors or architects. They write the high-level spec. Make me an app that does X, Y, and Z. And the AI writes it, tests it, fixes its own bugs, and deploys it. Because at 1.2 cents per million tokens, you can afford to let the AI just loop on a problem for an hour until it gets it right.
But there's a huge controversy brewing here. This is the distillation accusation.
Right. This didn't get as much press, but it's hugely important. OpenAI's lawyers went before the U.S. House Select Committee on China just this week, and they formally accused DeepSeek, another major Chinese AI firm, of distilling U.S. models to achieve their performance.
Okay, walk us through distillation. It sounds like you're making whiskey.
In the world of AI, it's much closer to industrial-scale plagiarism. Imagine you have a really smart teacher, that's GPT-5, and you have a student, that's the DeepSeek model. The student doesn't want to do the hard work of reading the entire library of human knowledge, the training data to learn. So instead, the student just asks the teacher a million questions on every topic, writes down all the answers, and then trains itself only on the teacher's answers.
So DeepSeek is just relentlessly querying GPT-5, taking all the output, and then training their own smaller, cheaper model on that curated output.
That's exactly what OpenAI is alleging. It's a massive shortcut. It allows you to skip the incredibly expensive multi-billion-dollar pre-training stage. And OpenAI claims they have logs showing DeepSeek used obfuscated routers and VPNs, hiding their IP addresses, to suck this data out of OpenAI's servers without being detected.
And OpenAI wants the U.S. government to step in.
They want the government to block chip exports. They are making a very direct national security argument. They're saying China isn't innovating. They are stealing our intellectual property to keep up. If you cut off their access to high-end NVIDIA and Cerebras hardware, their models and their entire strategy will collapse.
It's a full-blown geopolitical chess game being played with silicon.
It is. But, speaking of surveillance and people watching things they probably shouldn't, we need to pivot Because if cheap intelligence is one major trend, the ability to process real-world video cheaply is the other. And that leads us directly to the privacy nightmare of the week.
It has to be Meta.
It's always Meta.
They're really doing it. They are bringing back facial recognition.
They're calling it the name tag feature for their Ray-Ban smart glasses.
Name tag. It sounds so harmless. It sounds like something you'd wear at a conference.
It's a masterclass in dystopian branding. But the functionality described in the New York Times report is straight out of Black Mirror. The plan is to let people wearing the glasses identify anyone they look at in real time.
So you look at a stranger on the street, the glasses scan their face, match it against a massive database, and then your AI assistant just whispers in your ear. That's John Smith. He works at Google. He lives in San Francisco. Here's a link to his public profile.
That's the vision. And the crazy thing is, didn't Facebook shut this exact thing down years ago? I distinctly remember them making a huge public show of deleting their facial recognition database.
They did. It was 5 years ago. They deleted over 1 billion face templates and put out a press release saying, "We hear the concerns. Privacy is paramount. We're getting out of this business."
So what changed? Did they just think we'd forget?
I think they just waited. The news cycle changed. Internal documents uncovered in the report show they've been discussing bringing this back since early last year. They waited for the AI hype to reach a fever pitch, to normalize the idea of constant ambient processing of the world around you.
But the public backlash is going to be insane, right?
Yeah.
People are already so on edge about surveillance. The backlash is already happening, even without this. Look at what just happened with Amazon Ring and Flock Safety this week.
That story was wild. So for context, Ring makes the video doorbells, and Flock Safety makes those automated license plate readers you see in neighborhoods and parking lots.
And they had a partnership that allowed police departments to seamlessly request and pull Ring footage to correlate with license plate data. It was creating a massive, privately owned surveillance dragnet.
And they just canceled the partnership.
They had to. The user revolt was getting too loud. We saw reports online of people literally smashing their own Ring cameras with hammers or disconnecting them from their Wi-Fi when they found out Flock Safety has ties to ICE, to immigration and customs enforcement.
People did not sign up for their doorbell to become a deportation tool.
Exactly. It crossed a major ethical line for a lot of their customers. And Ring really didn't help their own case with that disastrous Super Bowl ad.
Oh God, the search party ad, I saw that.
Wasn't it something?
It was supposed to be this heartwarming story, help me find my lost dog. The AI accesses all the Ring cameras in the neighborhood to create a timeline and track the dog's movement.
And everyone watching that ad at home had the exact same chilling realization at the exact same moment. Wait a minute. If it can track a beagle across 6 city blocks,
Yeah.
it can track me.
It was a total mask-off moment. The intended convenience of finding the lost dog was instantly and completely overshadowed by the horror of stalking an ex-girlfriend or tracking a protester.
So you have this cultural environment where the public is actively and angrily rejecting surveillance tech. And this is the moment that Meta decides is the perfect time to launch face-scanning glasses.
It feels incredibly tone-deaf.
It feels arrogant. It feels like they're betting that the sheer utility, oh, I'll never forget a name at a party, will be enough to make people overlook the profound, society-altering creepiness of it.
But let's connect this back to the previous segment. We just talked about MiniMax making intelligence effectively free. That means the cost of surveillance is also dropping to zero.
That is the terrifying connect-the-dots moment. 5 years ago, running real-time facial recognition on a live video feed from millions of glasses would have been computationally and financially impossible. You only did it for high-value targets.
But now,
with specialized chips like the ones Cerebras is building and hyper-efficient models like the ones MiniMax is pioneering, you can scan every face on every street every second of the day for pennies. The economic barrier is gone.
which brings us, I think, to our final segment, the real-world friction. Because all this cheap, fast, smart AI, it's supposed to be making our lives easier, right? That was the promise.
The 4-hour work week dream. Automation was going to free us up for leisure and creativity.
But a brand new study from UC Berkeley in partnership with Workday just came out, and it basically says, dream on.
This study is just devastating for the whole AI productivity narrative that's being pushed so hard right now. They did a massive survey and observational study on the real-world impact of generative AI in the workplace. And the headline finding, AI pushes employees to work harder, take fewer breaks, and fill every natural pause in their day with more work.
That phrase, fill natural pauses, that really stuck with me.
It should. It's so insightful. Think about your workflow before generative AI. You write a draft of a document, you send it to your editor or your colleague for feedback, and then you wait.
You get a coffee, you stretch your legs, you chat with someone in the office. Your brain gets a chance to reset.
That's a natural pause. It's essential for avoiding burnout and for creative thinking. With AI, you finish the draft, you feed it to the model, and it spits out a line-by-line critique in 3 seconds flat. There is no pause. You're immediately thrown back into the task.
It's the ruthless efficiency of the assembly line, but applied to knowledge work.
Exactly. The machine now sets the pace. And the machine never gets tired, it never needs a coffee break, so the human tries to keep up with the machine, and eventually, the human breaks.
And the study also found that we're not even doing more creative work with this time. The data showed employees are now spending 40% of their time just checking the AI's output and fixing its mistakes.
We've all been demoted. We're not the writers or the creators anymore. We've become the quality assurance department. We're the spell checkers for a hallucinating, overcaffeinated intern.
And only 14% of employees in the study reported seeing clear positive outcomes from using AI. 14%.
It all comes down to what they call job scope widening. Companies see that AI makes an individual task faster, so they don't say, great, you've saved 2 hours, go home early. They say, great, now you can do 3 times as much work in the same amount of time.
So we're burned out, we're being stand by our glasses, and our bosses are just handing us more and more work. It's a grim picture.
It really is. And even the safe, privacy-focused options are failing to deliver. I mean, look at Apple.
Poor Siri. Still.
The big Siri overhaul is delayed. Again, it was promised for early 2025. Now it's been pushed to March 2026 at the earliest, probably with iOS 27.
Why are they struggling so much? They have basically unlimited money and talent.
Because they're trying to do most of the processing on-device to protect user privacy. But the chips in our phones, as powerful as they are, just aren't there yet for the kind of deep reasoning we were talking about with Google. The on-device experience is slow, it's inaccurate. The latest reports are that Apple is building a separate chatbot, codenamed Campo, that will just run on Google's Gemini servers.
So even Apple, the king of vertical integration, has to give up and outsource the brain to Google.
If you can't build the brain yourself, you have to rent it from the people who can.
And just before we go to the recap, we have to mention the military angle here, because while we're all getting burnt out in the office, the Pentagon is moving full speed ahead.
The Gemini Mill deal. OpenAI officially struck a deal to put a version of ChatGPT on the unclassified military network for analysis and logistics.
And this directly caused a high-profile resignation, right?
It did. Zoe Hitzig, a respected researcher on OpenAI's safety and policy team, resigned this week over it, and her public resignation letter was chilling. She warned that creating these massive archives of human thought and language gives bad actors unprecedented potential for manipulation and control.
Meaning, if a government, our own or another, uses this technology for targeted propaganda, we are almost defenseless against it.
Exactly. And when you combine that potential for psychological manipulation with the real-time facial recognition technology that Meta is building,
Yeah.
you have a toolkit for social control that is truly terrifying.
Well, that was a heavy hour.
It was. But it's the reality of Friday, February 13th, 2026.
Let's try to recap all this without spiraling into despair. So Google clearly has the brains. Deepthink is a legitimate, maybe even paradigm-shifting leap forward in pure reasoning.
While OpenAI has the speed, Spark running on Cerebras hardware is fundamentally changing the physics and economics of coding assistants.
Anthropic has the money, a $380 billion valuation to fuel their own race.
Meta has the creep factor with the name tag feature we never asked for.
And according to the research, the workers have the burnout.
And all of it is being supercharged by companies like MiniMax, who are proving that eventually all of this intelligence is going to be essentially free.
So here's the final thought, the provocative thought to take with you into the weekend. We are entering the era of infinite cheap intelligence. The technical and economic barriers to creating content, to writing code, and to conducting mass surveillance are all evaporating.
They're gone.
But if that UC Berkeley study is right, if the primary human role in this new world is to just become an error checker for the machine, what is the end game here? Are we actually using these tools to make our lives better, or are the tools just using us as a biological feedback loop to make themselves smarter?
That is the multi-trillion-dollar question. And I think the answer really depends on whether we as a society decide to deliberately slow down and think.
Yeah.
Or if we just keep trying to match the speed of the wafer.
Something to think about. And hey, if you want to be the master of the tool, and not just the error checker, You need to have control over your stack.
You really do.
So don't forget to check out our sponsor, AIRIA. It's pretty much the only sane way to manage all this speed and complexity without losing your mind. The link is right there in the show notes.
Secure your stack. It's more important than ever.
We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, hopefully with slightly less dystopian news to report.
We can hope. Fingers crossed.
Bye, everyone.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought about today's news. We just talked about Google launching DeepThink and OpenAI launching Spark on Cerebras chips. These are incredible tools. DeepThink crushes reasoning tasks. Spark writes code 15 times faster. Here is the reality. Your developers aren't waiting for permission to use these. They are likely already plugging these APIs into your codebase right now to speed up their work. This is the shadow AI problem. You want the innovation, but you can't afford the security risk or the surprise API bills at the end of the month. This is why we partner with AIRIA. AIRIA acts as the control plane for your entire AI stack. It sits between your employees and these powerful new models. You get unified security to detect threats. You get real-time cost control to manage budgets. And you get to say yes to tools like DeepThink and Spark without losing sleep. Don't let innovation break your governance. Secure your stack. Click the link in the show notes to get the AIRIA demo today.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.